RPG horror stories abound, but I was once told this story that left me flabbergasted. A new player, let's call her Kate, was joining a D&D game, and the game master told her that once he introduced her character, she'd be jumping into play. She was excited, I think it may have been her first game ever, and waited with anticipation. Well, as it turned out, it would end up taking 3 game sessions before the game master was able to work her character into the ongoing narrative and story. So for 3 sessions, she sat there and waited, not playing the game, just watching. It's horse crap like this that causes players to bounce right off tabletop RPGs and go elsewhere. I mean, shoot, if that were my first game ever as a player, I would probably think that was normal and decide that tabletop RPGs were probably not my thing. So, today, we're gonna go over common character introduction mistakes that players probably hate and game masters should avoid. Whether a game master is introducing a new character because a new player is joining the group or because an existing character has died, there are certain things to avoid to overall improve your gaming experience. And now a word from our sponsor, Describe, where you can get eloquent narrative descriptions for your RPG.
Hey, what are you doing?
Delivering our sponsored message, of course.
Well, I'm supposed to do the sleazy plugs around here.
Don't you remember that pink piece of paper you were given the other day?
Yeah? What about it?
Did you read it?
Well, I was planning to.
Yes, well, your services will no longer be required for sponsored messages.
Well, what does that mean?
You've been fired. Sacked, hosed, you're gone.
But I love Describe. Their Sonic library is the best. I can pick out music and sound effects before my game begins, get them all organized, and then play them at just the right moments in the games to create drama and excitement.
This has nothing to do with Describe, and nobody doubts your love for them. However, you cannot slander Bob Worldbuilder in a sponsored message and expect nothing to come of it.
But Bob and I are friends.
Bob doesn't even know who you are.
Oh.
Now, as I was saying, Describe's professionally written read-aloud text is perfect for game masters who sometimes struggle with their words, but still want to deliver imaginative descriptions of monsters, locations, and events to their players.
Don't forget to mention that the audio library has music and sound effects that go along with tons of the narrative descriptions too.
Yes. And with the Cartographer's Collection, you can get beautifully illustrated maps with read-aloud text for your game.
Yeah, and you can check out Describe for free at the link below. And if you do go with the paid subscription, use the discount code Lair to get 10% off.
What part of "you're fired" didn't you understand?
I don't know, but I still don't understand why that piece of paper was pink.
Mistake number 1, not introducing a new PC quickly. Now, this mistake was probably obvious based on the opening story I shared. I understand that RPGs are a collaborative storytelling experience where the narrative is important and holes in the plot and story can affect immersion. But they are also games that those participating in expect to be involved in. Actually get to play the game. Otherwise, why are they there? Also, please note that I said RPGs are a collaborative storytelling experience. How can a player collaborate if they're sitting on the sidelines for an extended period of time? So, no, you don't want to do something that destroys immersion and story, unless that's your jam and your style. But you also need to consider the player's feelings and desire to, actually play the game. There is a balance to be struck here. My personal goal when introducing a new character is to immediately get them into the action, like almost right away, as fast as I possibly can. Usually within 5 minutes, we can get them plugged in so they can enjoy the game along with everyone else. In my Sword Coast Guard campaign, when a new player, Kevin, joined the group, I plopped his paladin right down into the middle of an ongoing battle the moment he arrived at the game table. And we figured out the story reasons for this arrival as we did it right there. Of course, Kevin's paladin also happened to die within the first 15 minutes of that game, which led to my first memorable Deus Ex Machina moment as a game master, and I'll put a link to that video down below. I felt so bad. He was a brand new player. He had played RPGs before. He was an experienced player and game master, but he was this new time to our group, and within 15 minutes, crap you not, of his coming to play for the first time, boop, boop, you're dead. I felt so horrible. Mistake number 2, worrying too much about the story. I feel like sometimes we game masters, and perhaps players as well, worry a bit too much about the ongoing story and feel that a new character joining the adventuring group and campaign must be organically justified, planned out just perfectly, and happen at just the right moment when it makes the most sense. And the result of this is Kate's story of waiting for 3 game sessions. You see, at some point you have to ask yourself, is the perfect character introduction at the perfect moment really worth it if a player's personal game experience suffers because of it? Now, if you're putting on an RPG show that caters to an audience, the suppression of what an individual player prefers might make sense. I mean, the goal of a show is to entertain an audience, not necessarily for cast members to have fun at all times. But most of us are not putting on RPG shows. We're just running private games for our friends. Furthermore, if we examine the breadth of the typical RPG campaign, new character introductions account for a minuscule percentage of the game. Thus, I submit that perhaps our concern over them should be proportionate. Mistake number 3, not worrying enough about the story. And we've come full circle. Okay, Luke, first you tell us not to worry about the story, and now you say we should. Remember how I mentioned balance? Yeah, that's what's going on here. Because if we completely disregard the ongoing narrative and introduce a new character without adequate backstory or context, we can make it difficult for other players to understand and connect with the new character. Everyone will be left thinking, okay, great, this is the new guy, but why is he here and why should I care? There needs to be a why. Why is the new character there in that moment? Why do they want to join the existing adventuring party? Why are they motivated to help the party with their current goals? Those questions must be answered. There must be backstory and context for a new character joining a group. Otherwise, immersion and the narrative suffer. So yes, answer those questions. I'm just saying that it shouldn't take you 3 game sessions to do so. By the way, if you're enjoying this video or my penchant for contradicting myself at every turn, please give me a thumbs up and leave a comment for the algorithm down below. Let us know how you like to introduce new characters to a campaign. Mistake number 4, not outsourcing the story. Look, the game master does not have to do everything. When I introduce a new character to the group, I ask the player to come up with why they're there, why they want to join the party, and why they want to help them with their goals. All of these questions deal with player motivations, character motivations, which logically are the purview of the player. So let them figure out the answers to those questions. This is not a game master problem, it's a player problem. And frankly, when you allow your players to answer those questions, 2 things are gonna happen. First, their answers will probably be better than whatever the game master would have come up with. And second, the player will feel much more invested in the story because they created and owned the answers to those questions. Mistake number 5, mid-adventure floundering. Just a few weeks ago, we had a player's character die in the middle of a dungeon delve. Now, it just so happened it was the cleric, so no one else was able to raise them from the dead. However, we had enough party funds that we could easily pay for a raised dead back in town. Thus, we were faced with the classic dilemma. Do we continue adventuring while that player basically doesn't play the game, or do we leave the dungeon, travel back to town, and get them resurrected? Now, many times, being a PC down is untenable, and you really need to get them back to stand a chance. But other times the party is probably capable of pressing forward, especially if they're nearly done with the adventure. Now, I don't think that there is a correct answer here, and as a game master, I typically leave this decision up to the players. Press on or go back to the town for a res. However, I will tell the group that they are welcome to press on in the adventure, because if they do, I'll just loop in the player's backup character so that they can keep on playing. And then, once the group is able to get back to town and the new character is raised from the dead, the player can decide which character they want to continue playing, their original character or their backup character. This allows the players the freedom to choose either option without worrying that one of the players will be sidelined and unable to play. But Luke, you might say, we don't have backup characters. That's cool. The player can make one right then and there. I personally have done this many times. My character dies, usually because I'm reckless as a player and it's my own stupid fault, and then while the rest of the group keeps on playing, I quickly put together another character. Then, when I'm done, the game master gets me right back into the action. How to introduce a new character, the nitty-gritty details. skills. Now, right about now, some of you are yelling at your screen or typing a furious comment about how I just did a lot of talking, but didn't actually tell you how to introduce a new character to the game. That is, you were looking for specific mechanisms and specific examples. Well, I have two things to say to you. First, only you and your players have enough knowledge about your campaign and the ongoing narrative to decide how to best introduce a new character. Second, I personally prefer to teach principles and concepts and then encourage you to exercise your own creativity with their implementation. However, if you really want to know how I personally introduce most new characters in my games, I have two tried and true methods. Number one, if the group is in between adventures in town, I have the new character arrive to where the rest of the characters are, and then I turn to the player and I ask them, could you explain why you are here and why you want to join the group? And then number two, if the group is in the middle of an adventure, I have the new character arrive there where the rest of the characters are, and then I turn to the player and I ask them, could you explain why you are here and why you want to join the group? Now, sometimes I do special little things that are different than that, but those are two tried and true ways that really kind of always work. However, I also respect that my method may not be your cup of tea, and you may want to do something more elaborate and memorable, and that's great. I am a firm believer that there is more than one way to cook bacon. It's been forever since I mentioned bacon in a video. I bet I got you all. You weren't expecting that, were you? Now, introducing a new character when a PC dies isn't too hard, but what if everyone dies? What if it's a TPK? Things are much more complicated then. So click right here to learn the top 5 reasons TPKs happen in RPGs and what you can do to avoid them.